Oh, yes, it's the 4th of March, 2020, and this is the midweek edition of our program, Summit, the program that actually educates you and updates you on what's happening in the nation, that's across Nigeria and globally. Today is the midweek edition of the program. Jumake is not here. She's on a national duty. Yes, be sure that Jumake will join me next week. Today on the program, we're actually looking at issues trending in the polity. Yesterday, you recall that the Supreme Court actually threw out the case of the former governor of Imo State, Emeka Ihedioha, who actually sought a review of the earlier judgment, actually dethroning him from office. That's installing Senator Hope Uzodinma. Supreme Court judges, 6 of them actually affirmed the earlier decision, saying that Emeka Ihedioha's case lacked merit and he lacked jurisdiction. But of course, there was a dissenting voice. Justin Weze said that was not correct, that the judiciary, the Supreme Court had the power to review the case, the earlier case. Again, yesterday, House of Reps decided to go on a 2-week vacation in respect of coronavirus that's actually ravaging. It's ravaging because 50 countries today are actually experiencing coronavirus one way or the other. In Africa, 5 countries are affected, Nigeria inclusive. Yesterday, again, don't forget that a Chinese who actually flew into the country was actually quarantined, but eventually tested negative. Thank God. But all hands are on deck. Lagos State has continued to assure us that it's on top of the situation. And I believe the Federal Ministry of Health is actually doing all it can to contain the deadly virus. You are welcome once again. My name is Banji Busari. This is Summit. Doing it together with me today, of course, you know, we don't do it ourselves. We have veterans, those who know. We seek knowledge, and that's why we actually identify those who have it, those who can share the knowledge. And that's what Summit is known for. Today on the program, I have with me a learned person, yes, an attorney at law, very regular on Summit because, of course, he's one of the stakeholders of the program. Join me in welcoming Mr. Jide Ologun, an attorney at law. It's my pleasure, sir.
Thank you, sir. You're welcome.
Thank you for always acceding to our requests.
Thank God.
May the good Lord continue to strengthen you.
Amen.
I read somewhere else on a lighter note that we should desist from handshakes. From handshakes. It's one of the prerequisites, something put forward by a concerned citizen. Now, one of the ways to avoid coronavirus is to avoid handles, door handles, car handles. If you need to open, use an object, maybe cloth to touch it.
There are a lot of
But I just shook your hands.
Yes, you know, culturally speaking, change management is not easy. And for us, there are a lot of other things that bring the handshake. What about the currencies we circulate? You know, because what has been done in China is to even go as far as sanitizing the currency, the streets and everywhere. But I think for us in Nigeria, the reality is not so strong, particularly when even the index is still under surveillance. There hasn't been a confirmed death of anybody from coronavirus. And we are hopeful that like we combated the Ebola, the bird flu, and the various infections that visited Nigeria, that we are going to overcome this. So for now, it may not be easy. Exchanging pleasantries with the hitting of shoes like the Chinese are doing right now, because it's so tough over there. So,
but then we read that the deadly disease is actually abating. China, where actually originated from, but it's spreading across the globe.
Shows, you see, when globalization started, the world became a village, and that is when we started referring to the global village. And now it has even gone further down than becoming a village, than perhaps becoming a room, because people are highly mobile now, and the business activities around the globe may not help us in terms of people migrating. So you see people searching for opportunities across the world, and of course with a place like Nigeria with a huge potential for business opportunities despite our insecurity profile. You find a lot of people coming in here, particularly when you look at our permissive policies that sometimes encourage some of these foreigners to even exploit us. So you find people moving around, and if they don't come to Nigeria directly, they come through other countries. For example, the case that is being handled by Lagos State now is even in respect of an Italian who has been in Nigeria doing business, who came in from Italy. So the virus went to Italy, perhaps from China, and from Italy to Nigeria. Before then, I think the first case was recorded in Egypt, then the second one in Algeria. So, and right now, even in Nigeria, we thank God no one has died as we speak now. In America, I think over 7 has given up the ghost in respect of coronavirus. But I believe strongly that the world will overcome this too. And like you rightly mentioned, in China, China has risen up to the occasion to really embattle the virus. And there was even a funny report that in a particular country, they had to shoot down the index personality to prevent the spreading. But we pray, because given our culture and the way we relate in Nigeria, it's a serious prayer that it doesn't even find an inroad into
our country,
because it should be catastrophic.
We read that WHO, as a WHO, is actually after the other passengers that were in the same aircraft with the Italian that came to this country. That shows everybody is actually busy trying to track down, trying to ensure that it doesn't spread beyond where it is today. Maybe as a way to actually, as a proactive measure to curtail the spread of the disease, the National Assembly, particularly House of Rep, at his sitting yesterday, said it could no longer stay there, that looking at the porous nature of that place, where by people coming unchecked, that they needed to safeguard themselves. So a 2-week vacation was actually announced, and they had to take a leave for about 2 weeks. Now, how far do you think this would go? How far would it impact on other Nigerians?
It's part of the precautionary measure, and I'm impressed that the House of Reps is taking that action, but I would like to extend it a bit. They claim to be going on recess because of the fear of the virus visiting the chamber of the National Assembly, and to go and check themselves. And I wish also, like some of us have been demanding, that they would have also shut down to ensure that the relevant stakeholders stop the killings in Nigeria. Coronavirus is yet to kill a person, and we keep praying that God will show us mercy as we are proactively maintaining the hygiene that will prevent our being infected. But in the news so far this year, the Boko Haramis, the bandits, the criminals have killed, if I am correct, nothing less than 300 human beings in Nigeria, reportedly, and we are in the 3rd month. I mean, that is even being generous. In January alone, 320 were killed. So I think such should also make the National Assembly to rise up and say, we are going to suspend all plenary sessions until the executive arm ensures security in the land. And that is the essence of the checks and balances. And many are saying now that perhaps because coronavirus is no respecter of office, no respecter of tribe, no respecter of religion, it's a highly infectious disease, then it will attract their concern. And this is what we are saying. You see, the care must be towards everyone. But like I said, I hope that given the kind of weather we have, the kind of grace we enjoy as a people, and with the efforts we have seen on the part of the government, and the commendable dissemination of information for people to keep a high level of hygiene and things like that, that the coronavirus will not find an inroad. But I am still suggesting also that those who represent us in the National Assembly, whether the 109 senators, the 360 House of Reps member, should take the problems of this country as emergency cases. Electricity, education, the health sector at large, poverty, different kinds of challenges we have. And if that is done, we may begin to address those issues. So I wish them a very crisis-free break if they go on break, because I doubt if it has been confirmed that they are going. It was muted, but let's see how it goes. But I also want to say, when you leave the offices and the chamber of the National Assembly, there are other points of encounter. I was in Abuja recently and I had to go through the Nnamdi Azikiwe airport. I must tell you that the state of the facilities there, particularly the toilet facilities, is very, very, very poor. You see, there are points of contacts. So we should look beyond the National Assembly as a location and extend it. I doubt if I saw any sanitizer and things like that. So, and many are complaining that there are no sanitizers in various offices, and of course, it's the National Assembly that is even the House of Reps member now saying that they do not think that the Nigerian government is proactively prepared to handle coronavirus, given what is on ground. So it generally tells us that we can scale up in how we manage the affairs of the nation and make it all-encompassing, not just exclusive to the elites.
But then you and I are aware. We are aware that Lagos State government, for instance, has repeatedly assured Lagosians and Nigerians coming to Lagos that there is no cause to panic. And same for the Federal Ministry of Health, has assured Nigerians that they are on top of the game and that there is no cause to panic. Now, what we are seeing around, for instance, we are aware that the isolation centers in many states are not ready. They are not ready as we speak. Even Abuja's isolation center is still under construction. So how do you sensitize our government to actually rise beyond the level they are operating now?
The sensitization has been on for years. Nigerians have been calling for good governance. Good governance will take care of this. And we are witnesses to how China rose up to deal with the situation. And for me, I doubt if it will make any difference whether coronavirus started from China or not. If you look at the infrastructural profile and the response to the needs of the people, from where you get responsibility of China, it's a people-friendly governance system, all right? But here, and that's why, like I said, if the members of the National Assembly are passing vote of no confidence in our preparedness to handle coronavirus, then there's an issue. But having said that, some money have been released to combat coronavirus. So we hope that by the time we are through with this, we will be able to say that we have functional medical facilities, because we don't know which disease will rise up against. It's like building structures. And like someone said, it never hurts to be prepared. So this is a general demand for good governance, because whether we like it or not, it's a matter of priorities. You can see someone already came out to disclose that they have cure for coronavirus. Is the government paying attention to that claim? We're trying to develop it. As we speak now, I know that in a state, the medical doctors are going on strike. So all these things are connected. And what it tells us as a nation is that we are vulnerable. We thank God that we are very prayerful in Nigeria. We are people of faith. I don't know our level of resistance to external shock, like what we are passing through right now. So there is a need to develop the country.
There's a need to develop the country. There's no doubt about that. Recently, one of the experts in the medical field, particularly NAFDAC boss, actually raised some fears that our pharmaceutical industry is largely, I mean, the component for our drugs or pharmaceutical industries are largely imported from China. 80%, 90% of the raw materials, for instance. Now, with what you call a pandemic, sort of like coronavirus, emanating from China. Now, how do we ensure, even though you are not a medical, what's your word for the relevant agencies of government to actually forestall a situation where we'll be heavily dependent on a country that is all particularly challenged to?
It may shock you, sir, and I hope it doesn't shock you.
I'm used to shock.
Exactly. There are quite a number of the raw materials for producing these medications that we claim to have been imported from abroad were first exported from Nigeria to China before they were processed, because we have chosen deliberately or by default to remain at the primary level of industrial value chain. I mean, we can make references. Chinese come here, take our timber away, bring them back processed at premium. We have iron ore here. We are talking of, I mean, do you know the herbs we have in this country that can even quench coronavirus? But what do we budget for research? What is our level of involvement in developing local capacity? All these things are crucial. China decided to become an economic giant. And I know, by the grace of God, that they will overcome this soon. We pray, and that the whole world will move beyond this. Do you know that as a reflection of being strategic in the governance system, that because schools were shut down in some locations in China, the students have migrated to e-learning so that their education processes will not be disrupted? And do you know, by virtue of dynamism, it may be that they have just discovered through this crisis how to develop e-learning and give more time to other productive ventures. So societies will go through challenges. Challenges should make us stronger. So, and that is why we are saying, look at where we are. Ask this question, that what can befall us? Are we prepared for it? We all know it. During the dry season, we look at and talk about possibilities of flood. But we don't pay attention to clearing the drains in the dry season. It is when we now begin to have pockets of flood that we now start rushing to clear drainage and talk about it. So, a Greek author, Aesop, said, after much has been said and done, more is said than done. We need to rise up. I've just told you, China has been disinfecting the communities, disinfecting the currency, and the cases are dwindling. So we need, you see, if we engage the resources of this country to develop this country, we'll benefit from it. So we can develop the pharmaceutical industry, and we have not even started talking about the business policies, the taxation, the different kinds of impediments to industrialization of the country. We're talking about power, the cost of doing business, ease of doing business in Nigeria. So all these issues are there. Nigeria has a huge potential to be the best country in the world. And these challenges are to wake us up, and we look inwards. It's important.
It's very important. Moving on now, we'll begin to talk about, review the case at the Supreme Court yesterday, whereby the review being sought by the former governor of Imo State, Emeka Ihedioha, was actually thrown out and said to lack merit. It lacked jurisdiction. Of course, 6 out of 7 judges of the Supreme Court actually said there was no case, and that Senator Hope Uzodinma remains the governor of Imo State. Yes, there was a dissenting voice of Justice Uweze, who said the court had the power to review the case. Nigerians were actually expectant of a similar situation happened in Bayelsa, to repeat itself yesterday. But of course, judges or the learned people always say 2 cases do not come out same way. Yes, that was what happened yesterday. When we come back from this break, we're actually going to look at the issues involved in yesterday's judgment at the Supreme Court. Yes, the program is still Summit. This is the midweek edition of the program. My guest is Mr. Jide Ologun, an attorney at law. We'll be reviewing the issues so far on coronavirus, and we are transiting now to the judgment at the Supreme Court yesterday. Thank you for being on the program. Let me ask. This is your constituency. We're talking about judiciary now. About 2 weeks ago, the case of Bayelsa was before the Supreme Court. And I'm sure judiciary was actually shocked at the outcome. That not only was the case thrown out, the lawyers for APC and that of the former governor that was actually removed were actually fined heavily. So people, laymen thought it was a similar case to start with. Now, how can you ask Supreme Court to review or reverse itself on earlier judgment? But then it was a different ballgame entirely. Let me start with that. Were the 2 cases the same, or what happened? Why were they not fined? Because the reason was that you cannot bring this case to the court and ask them to reverse themselves. So what's the difference?
Cases may be similar, but may not be the same. And that's why we say that they have their peculiarity. So the case of Bayelsa is not the same as the case in Imo State.
But the bottom line was that they were both of them seeking a review.
Yeah, the common denominator is the quest for justice. And the fact that in the case of Bayelsa, all the justices in the team agreed. In the case of Imo, there was a dissenting voice. And that is very critical to the judicial system going forward. And let's lay a foundation. The Supreme Court, by virtue of Section 210 of our Constitution 1999 as amended, is the highest court in the land. So it has the final authority when it comes to judicial matters. And it has an appellate jurisdiction. And of course, it can adjudicate between matters between states and federal government. And the natural position should be that the decision of the Supreme Court is final. That is why it is supreme. But now we are having a novel situation where the decision of the Supreme Court is being challenged and demands for review are being placed. So that brings in a new concept of trust capital deficiency that is coming into our judicial system. Historically, The Supreme Court came into being on October 1, 1963, when we became a republic. Before then, you could appeal to the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council of the British Empire, formerly managed by the Kings in Council. Okay, I'm not satisfied with this decision, but after 1963, Supreme Court became the highest court. And the Privy Council was established in 1833. So you can see dynamism flowing. So the fact that the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land today, it may be that that situation may change tomorrow. On the basis of reviewing decision, even in the United States of America, you can review decisions of the Supreme Court, but not in the same case, but in a similar case in the future, where you review what you decided upon and say, oh, it should have been this. Now, let's focus on the case of Imo State. Justice Sestus Inweze, who brought a different position, who did not agree with the other 6 justices, said that the decision of the Supreme Court in the case of Imo State will haunt the electoral jurisprudence in the future. And that's a weighty opinion. I mean, it was his opinion. And he said that Hope Uzodinma misled the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court, in his opinion, was misled. How? That results were presented from 388 polling booths, and I think elections took place in, was it 366? And that the results of the opposition were not presented.
In those
exactly. And that Hope Uzodinma admitted in the tribunal, election tribunal, that he seized the result sheets from INEC officials and completed them by himself. So there were, in the opinion of Justice Inweze, that there were enough positions to say no, let's do this. But now that the Supreme Court has gone ahead to say we have spoken, like I said earlier, it now became a matter of humility and ego. And you expect that Supreme Court must remain supreme now. And I even said that perhaps the Supreme Court should not even have entertained parties coming back to court to say that they should review their decision, because that will open up a lot of graves. People will
that's the point.
Because on Monday, sir, I was in the Supreme Court on Monday, and the Zamfara stakeholders were there. The court was full. They are also asking for a review, but their matter was adjourned to 17th of March 2020. In fact, the Imo matter was there. That was when they sought the adjournment till the next day, because I think the party was jittery, and that may not be unconnected with what you said, the fines and the things that they slammed on Olanipeku and our son. So you can now see that whether we like it or not, the highest court in the land is under trial. It still remains the Supreme Court. But the challenge now is that, can people trust what is coming from the Supreme Court as reflecting justice? Because in the law school, we were taught that justice should not only be done, but clearly seen to have been done. So it's a trying time.
It's a trying time. When you spoke about a trust capital deficiency,
yes,
is your that opinion based on what happened recently, or is accumulation, or what you make accumulation of issues from the past?
With all due respect, and with speaking under the ability of analysis, I think the days of glory for the judiciary, started fading in recent years. But I hope that there will be a redemption, and we cannot debate that. But that is a discussion for another day. But you can see that the challenge is getting deeper now. But like I said, the Supreme Court remains the Supreme Court, And what is expected constitutionally is that it's the highest court. The moment you get there, your next point may be to approach God. But then, the Chief Justice of the Federation has emphasized that Supreme Court is a creation of the Constitution. So if some stakeholders begin to feel that it should not be the final bus stop, or that some new concept should be introduced, you go back to the legislative arm of government. And that's why we have the three arms of government for checks and balances. To review the law, review the Constitution. We can introduce other elements. We may even bring in a law now that, okay, we now mandate Supreme Court, when the pressure is at this level, to review decisions. Maybe we now say decisions can be reviewed 2 or 3 times, and after that, it is final. Because Justice Nweze is saying that in his own opinion, he believes that Supreme Court can review her decision where there is clear evidence that justice has not been delivered. All right? So, right now, it's between judgment and justice. And what can promote a nation, what can prosper a people, is justice.
Now, between ego and maybe humility, what do you think can be attributed to the decisions of the Supreme Court not to actually review? Now, the review, just as you said, may actually be an opener to maybe floodgates of several other cases. Those who felt aggrieved or agitated in the past may now start bringing up such cases. But what do you think is most likely for the decision to actually not to listen or to entertain a review? Ego or humility?
Oh, it's discretion. The Supreme Court has that discretion. In fact, I'm impressed that the Supreme Court even asked the stakeholders to come. I would have expected that you don't even entertain any call for review. But now that that has been tested, and they have seen the avalanche of bombardments that may visit the Supreme Court, I think the Supreme Court needs to sit down now and see how to regain the trust capital. And having said that, you know, cases will end in one or the other way. While there are victors, there will also be victims. In the case of Bayelsa State, Oshomole was crying foul. In the case of Imo State, he's praising the Supreme Court. So, and that is why the umpire must be very, very, very careful. All right. And like I said earlier, the demand of good governance is justice. And that is why they say that Lady Justice is blind. All right. But how blind justice is in Nigeria is another question entirely. And again, we need to begin to work against allowing the judiciary to determine the outcomes of elections. It's becoming a disturbing reality. There are several cases that came out of the last 2019 election. And that is why also now that INEC is reviewing, there's a bill now to review the electoral laws, make it deliberate to punish electoral offenders, engage the deployment of technology, make it inclusive for those who feel marginalized to be incorporated, and ensure that we have a credible electoral process, because the 2019 election in Nigeria did not put us in a good light globally. But I believe that we can always transform this and have a new narrative. So the engagements are on, and the society is in continuing. We just hope that in this window of time, those who are saddled with the privilege of managing the country, we do what is right. It is only what is right that can move us forward. The Word of God says righteousness exalts a nation. And I've made reference to this before when Chief Olusegun Obasanjo was amazed by what Lee Kuan Yew did in Singapore by transforming a third world country to a first world country. He asked him, hey, Lee, what did you do? And the man responded, we decided to do the right thing and continue to do the right thing. So the solution of the crisis in this country is in one key: to decide on doing the right thing and to continue, because that's why you talk about sustainable development. And I am suggesting that can this government go back to Chapter 2 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, bring back the spirit of our motto, unity, faith, love, and progress, and again embark on sustainable development. Let there be fairness, federal character, and let there be security of the people, welfare, infrastructural development, deliberate unifying of the nation, securing the people. And it will amaze us how we
let me hang on to one of the sentences, let there be fairness. And I think in actually preaching fairness, let's allow our viewers to be part of this program by actually sending in their text messages. But before we actually do that, we'll go on a short break. When we return, it will be time for our viewers to actually join us by making their inputs. What do they think? How do they see the judgment? What's their view about coronavirus? Is it being actually contained the way it should? Are the relevant authorities doing what they're supposed to do? So that's what we'll be doing after the break. Yes, the number to call, you're welcome back. The number to call on to is 08059291146. It's 08055291146. Yes, we're actually looking at, earlier on you spoke about the reaction of the political leaders to the judgment. Yeah, naturally so, nobody likes to lose any state. But has it ever happened? And how can we develop our political culture such that we also do what is needful to be able to get the right judgment even when we get to the law court? Yes, the law, the judges would actually treat each case based on its merit. The politicians see it the other way. So what's your advice?
The merit should be screened by the concept of justice. Perhaps also based on the evidences adduced before the court. But then we should not, for any reason, whether for technicalities or whatever reasons, allow injustice. Injustice destroys the spirit of fairness, of equity, of unity, and we must fight against it. So, and there is a mandate on those who are trusted to deliver justice. If you pervert justice, you must render account somewhere. And what we have noticed is that the best way to have peace within and after being in office is to do what is right.
Yeah, doing what is right is desirable. The number to call, to send your messages to is on the screen, 070-5929-1146. 070-5929-1146. Now, between when you look at earlier, you spoke about judiciary now more or less choosing for people their leaders. Now, by way of judicial proclamation, when a leader is actually foisted on the people based on maybe minimal number of votes, what do you think is likely to be the consequences of such?
Where that is allowed, it's purely injustice. And that's why we are saying the Constitution has spelled these things out. That sovereignty belongs to the people. And democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And people should be allowed to choose their leaders. And many of us have complained about the military involvement in our electoral processes to create intimidation. We are reviewing the electoral laws now. We had about 11 electoral offenses. In the 2019 election, some of us monitored the election keenly. All the offenses were committed. How many people have been prosecuted now? Even in the case of Bayelsa, where the court, up to the Supreme Court level, established fraud and forgery, has anybody been taken for prosecution? So you just see perhaps the elite trying to manipulate the system, but a manipulated system will backfire somewhere along the line. And that is why the best we can do is to allow justice. In anything you do, do it with the fear of God, and do it with the consciousness of your impacting others. You can either add value to society or diminish value.
Or diminished value. Now, let me just remind our viewers that you are advised to send your messages. Please, it's our culture on the program to attend to text messages only. Yes, I think we have one here saying, "Thank you, sir, the lawyer before you, talking in all fairness and with the fear of God. Is he not partisan? Thank you." Wale, that's a Wale from this state where he's sending from. But he's asking you, are you partisan or not?
Who is not partisan? I'm on the side of Nigerians, that we should have good governance. So I'm in the Nigerians party. And here today we have discussed Imo and Bayelsa, so it's not a matter of parties. And that is one of the things we must deal with in Nigeria. These major parties have not added value to us. So we are not about partisan politics. We are about governance. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals is not focusing on politics. It's focusing on governance to make life better for the people, to have a secured future and not an endangered future. The Almanjiri issue is not a partisan issue. The kidnappers are they partisan? The bandits who kill people, are they partisan? So we should move beyond that, and we appreciate that comment, really.
Now, of course, sorry, please do not call. Send in your messages. Send in your messages. The deposed governor of Bayelsa State has actually asked his people to accept the judgment of the Supreme Court, meaning that he has actually moved on, maybe preparing for another, maybe 2027 or whatever, or 2023. Now, what would you advise, the politicians general, particularly those whose cases were actually thrown out at the Supreme Court?
There's another time to contest, but I think my concern is more about the winners, because whether you like it or not, your term will run out. The Nelson Mandela we celebrate in Africa has concluded his earthly term. He's gone to be with the Lord, but his legacies are there to honor him thereafter. So with your victory or with your losses, what value are you willing to add to the society? It's quite critical. Whether you have 8 years or 20 years or whatever, it's a time frame within the space of time. I mean, almost all those who fought for the independence of Nigeria in 1960, quite a number of them have even left the stage. So the big question is, when you are on the stage, what value will you add in making life meaningful and securing the future of generations to come?
Now, there was this position by some people that maybe the Supreme Court itself is saddled with so much responsibilities that it hardly has time to actually look very, very comprehensively, critically at the issues before it. What's your opinion about allowing the gubernatorial petitions to actually end at the appeal court?
It's a decision for them to make. I think it's a systemic thing. So if they feel overwhelmed, then they should be more diligent. And don't let us rule out the fact of infrastructure and the fact of righteousness, because I can tell you, being a player on that platform, sometimes some of those problems are deliberately created to make processes
are deliberately created.
to make processes cumbersome and stuff like that. This is Nigeria. We deny the obvious. You see, I belong to the school of thought that believes that, for example, registering a company, it should not be more than 2 days. In Rwanda, you can register a company, open your bank account, and get your tax number within 24 hours.
It's done here too. LCCI facilitates that.
Exactly.
I'm aware that during international trade fairs,
international trade fair, make it a general thing. Then I look forward to when I can get my national ID card in 24 hours. These things are possible. So if we complain about problems, you should ask yourself, have we deliberately created these problems, or did the problems just jump on us? So we need to be deliberate in making great things happen. That's why we have resources. Why is it that the first power station was installed in Lagos, I think Broad Street, in 1898 or so, and today we still don't have electricity that is reliable in Nigeria, that is crippling our economy, and yet we supply to Nigeria Republic, Benin Republic. So we need to come together as a people and look at where we are now migrating to. We are now migrating to prompting regional security responses. So where is the national unity? We need to get serious. If we decide to run a template of governance system, it must be effectively done with fairness, with justice, with equity, and maximize our resources for the benefit of all. You may want to go and check go and Google the mandate of the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources. I'm challenging Nigerians now. Just go and Google it and benchmark it with what we have in this country. That we still spend about 11 trillion naira. I won't stop mentioning that. In 6 years on subsidy. You can use value-added tax going up, and you can see businesses. We need to face these realities. Look at how we have become a concern to the world in terrorism. You wake up in one day, 50 killed by bandits and things like, we need to get serious. We need to get serious. This is a great nation.
I need to actually thank you. Let's actually hang it there. We have been discussing with Mr. Jide Ologun and Anthony Atlo. We actually started out with the coronavirus. And I believe all hands are actually on deck to actually contain it. Thank God some private individuals are actually rising to the occasion. A sum of 200 million naira is said to have been donated by the business mogul, Aliko Dangote, and several other people are actually putting their best to contain it. We did it with Ebola. We succeeded. We actually trashed out and sent out Ebola a couple of years back. We can do it again, and that's the focus. Yeah, the Supreme Court judgment has come and gone. I believe the stakeholders have taken their lessons from it, and it will guide their future actions or inactions. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. We're always very grateful to you. Once again, I will ignore the advice and shake you. Thank you for your time, sir.
God bless
and
Nigeria.
Have a great day, sir.
Thank you, sir.
That's the show today. My name is Banji Busari. See you on Monday. Bye-bye.